We are in the midst of what I call the bread of life doldrums. For 5 weeks in a row, we hear chapter 6 of John's Gospel in its entirety. Nay, some verses we hear twice, as the text overlaps a little each week. This windless season hits every 3 years in our church lectionary cycle, and I somehow never noticed it until this year. I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate manna and they died. Eat my flesh, drink my blood, live forever. Truly I say to you, I am the bread of life. I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate manna and they died. Eat my flesh. August 4th, August 11th, August 18th, August 25th. Now, I never met a carb I didn't like. But all this bread is too much. But wait, look, Ephesians. Be careful then how you live, because the days are evil. Now that's more like it. And here's Proverbs. Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn her 7 pillars. You that are simple, turn in here. All right, we can work with this. Evil days, wisdom. Evil days, wisdom. Coffee. Evil days, cookie. Wisdom, more coffee. Evil days, wisdom. Got it. Here's what today's readings are warning us about, in my unhumble opinion. With all the evil around us these days, we're being kind of stupid. Time to wise up, as Jesus would have us do. Amen. I guess you pay me a little more than that, huh? You expect another message. Well, okay. You asked for it. When I was associate rector at St. Luke's Long Beach, I noticed after about a year that the rector, the Reverend Gary Cummins, had a distinct way of preaching. First, he'd confront the people in the pews with a hard truth they didn't want to hear. Then he'd spend much of the rest of the sermon kind of softening the blow, helping them to see how they could, after all, rise to the challenge he was presenting. I, on the other hand, was told that I led with laughter, only to sneak in the hard truth later in the sermon. When I had this revelation about our preaching styles, I said to Gary, you kind of stab them in the gut first, then you tend to their wound. I like to rub their belly until they're all soft and happy, and then stick it in. So I'm glad you're laughing now. What I see in our readings this week is a dichotomy of sorts, or rather a 2-part message in the collect of the day. Christ is a sacrifice for sin, but also an example of godly life. We receive thankfully the fruits of his redeeming work, and we follow daily in his blessed steps. In Proverbs, wisdom is personified as a woman, no surprise to at least half of you. And she extends an invitation to her house. You that are simple, turn in here. You without sense, come eat of my bread and drink of the wine I have mixed. Lay aside immaturity and live and walk in the way of insight. Ephesians, be careful then how you live, not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of the time because the days are evil. So do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. And perhaps most pointedly for my purposes, Psalm 34. Who among you loves life and desires long life to enjoy prosperity? Turn from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. Now, most of you are not actively evil, I think, nor I hope am I. But more and more I fear we are passively evil. I fear for my soul. And as your priest, whether you like it or not, I sometimes fear for yours. But I will speak only for myself and trust that you will extrapolate my words to your life. The number now stands at 40,000 Palestinians killed. Gazan children, elderly adults, recuperating in hospitals or sheltering in schools, at prayer, or while fleeing once more as instructed. 1 in 50 people in Gaza are dead, including relief workers, journalists, medical staff, and yes, Hamas fighters, and Israeli hostages. Were that ratio of 1 in 50 applied to Los Gatos, we would have lost 600 here in the past 10 months. And the United States provides Israel with funds for the bombs that do the killing. All of these are facts, not political statements. Yet it feels scary to even say these words to you, like I'm crossing a line by describing what is right in front of the entire world to see. It's taboo to mention it, even among friends. Maybe because I'll be perceived as anti-Semitic if I point these things out. If pointing out the slaughter of innocent Palestinian children is automatically anti-Semitism, then I am guilty. But I say we're passively evil. That I'm passively evil. Because I don't seem to care too much about this horror, though I sometimes point it out. I post photos on Facebook of our road trip to Wyoming. I press like on others' travel posts. I eat too many slices of pizza and have an extra brownie, as if children aren't starving and being orphaned half a world away. It's kind of weird, to use a current word. And maybe we're not supposed to let these worlds intersect. That's far away and super sad. But I can't spend every day upset about it, can I? Well, no. But I can point it out and feel shitty about it. And maybe that will lead to something productive. The Reverend Mark Stanger is a friend and the man who led my trip to the Holy Land last summer. He has many, many friends there, mostly Palestinian Christians. Mark posts multiple times a day about this war on his Facebook page. And here's crickets in return. I've preached on this before. We can't even press like or sad on Facebook to support someone like Mark's cries of rage and injustice. Yesterday morning, actually 2 days ago, his post ended with, "Complete ceasefire now. Sit and make deals later." And right under those words, he added his colorful Wordle score box and quipped, "Posting this with my Wordle to see if it has further reach." 2 days later, no one but me had responded in any way. I pressed the angry face and wrote, "Thank you for continually putting this in front of us, Mark. My silence makes me sick sometimes." My parents became U.S. citizens in the early 90s, a few years before my father died. When my mother voted for the first time in the primaries, 1996 or 2000, I asked her, "So who did you vote for?" "El Señor Ralph Nader," she replied. "Really?" I said in surprise. "Why?" "Porque él es el que más quiere a los pobres." Because he's the one who cares most for the poor. My mother had little sense of what political parties were. She knew nothing about voting strategically. She barely spoke English. And yet she cut right through to the core of things. Is this not what Christ tells us time and time again? Whenever you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. Whenever you ignored someone's suffering, you ignored mine. Now, I have definite political opinions, and I'm not so great at arguing them. But as my mother's son, I find myself asking who is suffering most here. And accordingly, my heart aligns with them. And when I read the story of a father who went to register the birth of his 4-day-old twins in Gaza, and came back with birth certificates in hand, only to find their home bombed and both infants dead, along with his wife and her mother, I feel sick. And so should we all. Horror movies are being filmed in Gaza in real time. And we're eating popcorn, but watching something else. I fear we've become passively evil. We meet these evil days simplistically, without sense, immaturely, like fools, receiving thankfully the fruits of Christ's redeeming work in our lives, without following daily in his blessed steps. We should be screaming. We barely murmur. The Austrian journalist Caitlin Johnstone wrote, "Human beings are being butchered by the thousands in full view of the whole world. You don't get to run for cover for this by filing it away under the label of political opinion." 25 years ago, the poet Wendell Berry wrote, "How many deaths of other people's children by bombing or starvation are we willing to accept in order that we may be free, affluent, and supposedly at peace?" His answer, none. Please, no children. Don't kill any children for my benefit. I know we're not doing the bombing ourselves directly, but we are responsible at some level to at least care, to at least pray, to at least find a way to send money or help or anything, even just to start pressing like on those friggin' Facebook posts so that those who are brave enough to publicize these things don't feel so left alone. Maybe you don't have this problem. Maybe this is just the vestiges of my Roman Catholic guilt. If so, I embrace it. I am grateful to feel terrible about others' suffering. I am grateful to feel terrible about others' suffering. I hope in the future I can do more than just stand here and pontificate about it to you. And I pray you ponder these things in your own heart as well. Wise people may be the unhappiest people on earth. Or put another way, ignorance is bliss. I pray you know no such bliss. I pray we all someday soon wise up in any way we can. Turn from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. Amen.